Sean, Brandy, or Ashley?
I'm here.
Thank you. And representing Wesco, Mandy or Matt?
Matt's here.
Thank you. And representing Garfield, Carl, Tom, or Monica?
Carl's here.
Thank you. And I guess technically Monica is no longer an alternate, right? For Garfield.
Yeah, probably.
All right. And representing Boulder, Patty or Christine?
Yeah, Patty's on the call. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have 79% present today. We do have a quorum. So with that, I will turn it back over to Carl.
Thank you. And for those that your names weren't called, if you go to the agenda, there's a sign-in link. If you'll please do that. Next order is approval of the minutes from September 2001 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
This is Kimberly. I'll make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
This is Connie. I'll second that.
This is Carl. Motion by Kimberly, second by Connie. Any opposed, please let us know. Seeing none, it passes. Our next item, this is Carl. Our next item is presentations, new OnStar services presentation.
Good morning. This is Sherry Levesque from OnStar. I hope you can see me okay. I'm actually coming at you from Florida today from the Florida NENA conference. I would like to share some slides. May I do that?
You should be able to share your screen.
Okay. One moment, let me. Okay, can you now see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Fabulous. Well, again, thank you so much for your time today. I have myself and my colleague, Mitch Pedersen, on the line. Mitch, if you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself briefly, real quick.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Mitch Pedersen. I'm with the OnStar outreach team. I have a pretty long background in public safety before coming out the outreach team. I retired from a 28-year career in the fire service with a department in the metropolitan Detroit area. Now work with Sherry and OnStar. Thanks for having us.
And again, thank you very much for the opportunity, Daryl, to provide an update on one of our latest and newest services that we actually are piloting at this moment. So I'm going to jump right into some of these slides, and just in general, when you think of OnStar, may I ask what does everyone think of? What type of services and what is OnStar? What do you think we provide? If anyone would like to entertain me with possible responses.
I think mostly in-vehicle services.
That is a very common response. You are likely most familiar with OnStar from an in-vehicle service or an in-vehicle emergency where we've reached out and asked for a dispatched response on behalf of one of our customers or a Good Samaritan. We are really excited that we have really expanded beyond that. Last year, you likely heard about the launch of our OnStar Guardian mobile app. And this is something that customers can take outside of a General Motors vehicle. So they can have some of the same key OnStar services in any vehicle. So just real quick, this app has the ability to detect a crash no matter what vehicle they're in. Again, the calls come into our OnStar advisors who triage the calls just like you are used to. And so that's another type of service that OnStar offers right now. And again, that started last year. Today, I want to talk a little bit more about one of our newer services, which is actually in providing services in homes using smart speakers. We're really excited that this actually coincides with our 25th anniversary. So we've worked with public safety for over 25 years. I remember when OnStar first started in '96, it was the same year I started in the PSAP myself. So we've got quite a long history of a variety of emergency services and technologies that over the years we feel have kept customers and drivers and vehicle occupants, as well as first responders, safer on the roads. So today, beyond the vehicle, beyond the mobile app, and now into the home. The last time I spoke to Daryl, I mentioned that we could not share who it was that we were partnering with for this new service, but it was announced that we are working with Alexa, Amazon Alexa and Echo enabled devices. So now we'll be able to take some of those emergency calls from in the home. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why, some of the background behind it and how it's going to work. So across the US, there are over 45 million smart devices. I'm sure many of you on this call may have one in your home as well. You can verbally say Echo or Alexa, and then ask it to perform a task. I apologize if any of you have this in your home right now and you're on this call because it may be activating right now. You can ask it to turn lights on, turn lights off, lock doors. It's all through voice recognition, and the system also learns the voices in the home. Now, we feel there's a significant opportunity in the home with this type of device because, first of all, these smart speakers and voice assistants are not authorized to dial 911. They're prohibited by the FCC. So the other thing to think about is that there's a significant decrease in landline phones, as you well know. And with the mass popularity of smartphones, that's typically what we all use now to communicate. But there are some challenges that children face because they may not know how to unlock that phone. They may not, if they do know how to unlock it, it may not be their parent or relative who's watching them. Or someone may not even be in the vicinity of their smartphone and need assistance. So we think OnStar is going to be a perfect fit to help and triage some of these calls. By saying, Alexa, I need help, or Echo, I need help, it will connect into our trained OnStar advisors. They're EMD trained and certified since 2010, and we are an accredited center of excellence. And we think this is a great opportunity to further add protection beyond the vehicle, beyond a smartphone, and now into a home. A little bit about how this is going to work. Here, this is speaks to it from a very general perspective, but the smart speaker or the voice assistant will recognize those trigger words and confirm if the person who is speaking wants to connect to our advisor. Once they're connected, the advisor will confirm their location, as they always do. They will request their mobile number if needed. For example, if they are in a situation where there's a home fire and they need to vacate the home. We will continue to provide EMD as you're accustomed to, and we'll have a second advisor who will do that while the first advisor contacts the ECC. And the ECC, we are going to continue to use our proprietary database to reach out to the agency, and we're still going to remain on the line until first responders arrive. There's a couple key things that are different about this service that we want to make you aware of, is that there's a customer profile that's attached to the home address of the smart speaker. And this profile allows us to tell you approximately how many people may be in the home, if the customer set that up, maybe if there is a dog or a cat, and maybe even if they're aggressive in the home. So we can share that information as well if we call you for assistance on behalf of individuals reaching out using this technology. So I do want to pause for a moment and give you a minute to kind of digest some of that information and answer any questions you may have. Or if you don't have questions, you can wait till the end. I will go ahead and proceed for the sake of time.
This is Daryl. I see a hand up.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I can't see that from my end. I apologize. Yes, what's the question?
Billy, I think that's you.
Yeah, if you're in a vehicle, you're in the mountain in a non-reachable area by typical cell phone, and you're not able to voice anything, does the OnStar reach out to those areas better than the cell phone would?
Okay, so your question focuses on our vehicle-based service, is that correct?
Yeah, your OnStar vehicle, so I'm a little bit off tangent, but it was a question that came up with when we had another discussion with someone else, and he was in the mountains in Grand Junction area. And his car broke down and it was in the middle of the night, it was very cold, and he was trying to get some help, but he was in an area that's unreachable by cell phone. So my question is, will the OnStar work better?
That's an excellent question. And we do require cellular connectivity. However, we have found that the external skyward facing antenna on the GM vehicles that have the OnStar service is a stronger connection and reaches a little further than a mobile phone would. So we have received calls where your
Okay.
smartphone may not have had service, but it did come into our OnStar advisors for assistance. That's a great question. Thank you for that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. This just recently happened, just recently, so I had to bring that question up. Thank you.
Okay, so one scenario that we foresee happening, and in this visual that you see in front of you, is an emergency involving an adult, and the child is reaching out through the Amazon device to reach our advisor, who then reaches out to the appropriate jurisdiction to request a dispatch response. Another scenario that we foresee occurring could be a fire in a home. The cell phone maybe, or the smartphone, excuse me, may be charging in another area of the home. Maybe it's in an area that's fully engulfed. The resident can verbally reach out through the device, ask for assistance. And again, our advisors will contact the appropriate ECC for a dispatch response. So just to give you a quick update on how this, the status of this entire technology and service, we have been sharing information about this new service with all of the states across the US since the spring. We have been doing a lot of internal piloting and testing, and we really just recently, within the last couple of weeks, received an emergency involving a female who fell down and was unable to get up. This occurred in Georgia. It worked exactly the way we expected, and we were really happy that we could provide assistance and get someone to her to help her. I do see a couple questions in the chat. So one thing here I see is if you have a customer profile information on file that is automatically shared when you relay calls to the 911 center, or do dispatchers need to request that information when OnStar calls? That's a great question, and our advisors can share that information if the situation warrants it. So if you are sending a first responder, in this situation that occurred in Georgia, she actually had a dog on scene with her, and we were able to tell first responders when we provided them with the location and a description of the incident. So we will provide that, but please feel free to ask also if you would like. Another excellent question is, what does the alley look like? As of right now, that information will still appear as OnStar and our callback call center. The phone number of 866-866 again, 5006. However, it will say OnStar mobile. So it will say OnStar for OnStar vehicle-based incidents, and then OnStar mobile for the Guardian mobile app, as well as the Guardian home service. Another update I'd like to share with you is that we're in the process of creating public safety training so that you can leverage that to share with your staff. It will be an animated video as well as a narrated short training. We don't expect it to be more than 5-10 minutes. We're in the process of putting that together, and we will have that on our website, public safety website, in the very near future. Another question we have on here is OnStar working on routing calls directly to the local 911 center versus going to your call center first and then transferring to the local PSAP. We are not. We do feel that our live advisors being on the call and the fact that they're EMD trained and certified is a significant benefit. And we also feel that we're in a good situation to help during these times where staffing shortages are obviously a problem, and also to weed out any accidental calls. Similar to our OnStar vehicle-based service, over 70% of those calls, emergency red button presses from in the vehicle, those are accidental, and our advisors weed them out. All of these that come in on the home system, we plan to do the same thing. But thank you for that question. Are there any other questions that I could answer?
This is Derek Walker, and I'm the director here in Durango, Colorado. So looking at this, currently we've contacted OnStar multiple times with a concern that we have, and I see this possibly enhancing the concern that we're existing today. We are receiving dozens each week of OnStar 911 reported calls to us. They appear to be originating out of Bayfield, Colorado, within our service area. But the caller who is joined in on the call with the OnStar representative are typically in New York, Los Angeles, California, or other states. And they demand that we connect them with the appropriate call centers, which, as we all know, we do not have that capability. And we've been unable to get that resolved. So I just kind of want to bring that to the attention because y'all are expanding your services, which I would see probably having the potential of expanding that concern for us, as we would like to assist those callers, but have no ability to connect them on the 911 service line to out-of-state agencies.
Okay, this is the first I've heard of that, and so I would like to hear more. I am going to put my contact information in the chat. I would like to research this on our end and get to the bottom of this to ensure this does not continue to occur. I would like to confirm that this is an OnStar call that's coming in, or could it be another telematics company?
No, they identify themselves as OnStar. It appears that there's about 3 to 4 of your representatives, and all those calls are originating out of Bayfield coming into our center here. But again, they're only callers in distress who are involved in motor vehicle accidents and other things in out-of-state regions. And they continue to demand that we connect them.
Okay, well, please reach out, and if you could provide any details about the location, the time or date of those calls, if they provided an OnStar incident number, I would be glad to research that, because that should not be occurring. So please feel free to email me any details you have. I would like to get to the bottom of that. I see another question here is the cost of the service. Well, this is currently a pilot right now, and they're working through some of those marketing pieces. And we have not finalized that detail just yet. Right now, we are piloting it with OnStar, General Motors, and a select group of current customers. And pricing will be available likely after the first of the year when this is launched across the US in early next year. We will also be continuing to share updates about this service in our public safety newsletter and on our website. If you have not seen that, I would like the chance to share some of that information with you now. Our OnStar public safety website can be located at www.public-safety.onstar.com. If you're looking for the training, you can access the training on the top. We also have, this is our training area. It's a virtual site, and this new information will appear over here on the directory where it will talk about the Guardian Home Service. This says the OnStar Guardian app, which was the last new service that we launched. And then our public safety website, you can also sign up for it at the same site, but it comes out 3 or 4 times a year. And it will include updates about our training and any new services of this nature that could impact first responders' jobs, just and for your awareness and understanding of how we can work better together. And that concludes the update that we wanted to provide. I'm really glad that we were able to disclose our partner with this new service. And if you receive any of these calls, we welcome the opportunity to critique them and are very open to feedback. We really pride ourselves on having a really good relationship with public safety and making sure that you're aware of what we're doing almost in advance of what we do whenever possible, so there are no surprises and that we can modify it to make sure it's mutually beneficial. And I see there's a question here about 911 equal access and how OnStar deals with nonverbal customers. That's another excellent question. We do, for our vehicle-based service, we have, and I know this is outdated technology at this point, a TTY. We are also looking at opportunities for the mobile app to have a text option for interaction. And we also, for your awareness, have a public safety advisory council, which includes Richard Ray, who he's been giving us some great feedback on how we can make our services even more accessible and inclusive. And we have several other members on our council who are helping to guide our launch of new products and information and how we share it and what type of processes we put in place.
Well, thank you, Sherry. I appreciate it. Does anybody have any other questions for Sherry before we let her go? I just have one quick question. This is one of the things that comes up every time we talk about a new service or a new bit of information that needs to get to the 911 centers in the state. One of the questions that always comes up is whether that provider who's providing that information has had discussions with Rapid SOS for delivering that data to the PSAP, because most of Colorado's 911 centers participate with Rapid SOS through either the free portal or through an integration with one of their existing systems like their CAD or their phone system. And it seems like, although you are connecting the caller to the 911 center via a 911 line, if any data is collected by OnStar prior to that call being connected, that could be provided to the 911 center through a Rapid SOS portal. So I was curious if you can talk to that at all, if OnStar has talked to Rapid SOS about that possible partnership, or if that's something that's not on the radar right now.
Actually, that's excellent timing. We have had discussions and are looking at opportunities to work with them. I have no details on that at this point. We do engage in conversations with many vendors to find out how we can further collaborate to make sure it's mutually beneficial for public safety. I am excited to say that in California, we did recently partner with Rapid Deploy, and for the entire state, as part of their Next Gen 911 statewide rollout, our crash incidents are sending electronic data to their system in their Radius product, so that the call taker, dispatcher, telecommunicator can see that, along with all of the data that we typically would share verbally. So it still accompanies a voice call, but it gets there a few seconds earlier, and that all of that information can be passed along much easier to the first responders who are en route to the scene, so that they can prepare for the scene and what type of resources and or patient care may be needed. So to answer your question fully, we have already partnered with Rapid Deploy, and we are actively looking at other opportunities, and we'll continue to share that information as it rolls out.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone else? Well, Sherry, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I am going to stop sharing, and I think I lost my chat. Someone had asked me to email them. If whoever that was could email me with the contact I provided, that would be great. I apologize. I have lost the chat section of the Zoom.
Thank you. And if anybody afterwards, if you have any questions for Sherry and you don't have her email address, just send me a message and I'll get you two in touch.
All right, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
This is Carl. Sherry, thank you for the presentation. Our next item is the 2022 task force election. Daryl or Holly?
This is Holly. So I can talk a little bit about what information we've received so far for folks who are interested in running for the 2022 positions that are open. So bylaws do require that individuals who are interested in running reach out prior to the election and provide their information, name, bio. So I want to run through which positions we haven't yet received any representation of folks who are interested. And I think Daryl or Carl or Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we can take nominations from the floor. The vote won't happen today. Once we know all of the nominations, I will be creating an electronic ballot that will be sent out within 2 weeks of this meeting, I believe is what the requirement is. And then voting members, current voting members, will then vote on all of the folks who have nominated themselves or were nominated by somebody else. So I will go through those real quick unless Daryl, you have something else to add to that before I explain which positions still need representation.
This is Daryl. Just a moment. Morning frog in my throat. I just wanted to confirm what you just said. So the bylaws say that nominations are supposed to take place before this meeting. However, if we have positions that we don't have any nominations for, I think we can open it up to nominations from the floor at this meeting today so that Holly can send out a full roster of candidates for every position.
This is Holly. Thanks, Daryl. So the representatives that we do have, we don't have a wireless representative. Patrick with T-Mobile Sprint had originally indicated interest, but then responded back to me saying that his workload has changed and he doesn't know if he would actually be able to continue in that position. I haven't got confirmation on that yet, but since Patrick also isn't in this meeting, I think it would probably be wise for us to have an additional wireless representative. We do have representative for CML. So Megan, who's on the call, is wanting to run again. We also have the representative from CCI, the Weld County Commissioner, as well as their alternates will be running again. And then we have 911 representatives, or I apologize. We have 9 911 representatives. There are 10 positions that are trying to be filled. So we have 1 vacant position, and I did maybe want to, so far, everybody who's currently a representative has offered to run again, except for, and I apologize, I'm not doing this to call folks out, but I just want to make sure that the only representative that I did not hear back from, I think, was Douglas County. So I just wanted to check in if Deanie's on the call, if that's still an interest, or if we should open up that position for a different 911 rep.
Holly, it's Shannon. I'm the alternate for Douglas. And yeah, we'll go ahead and rerun.
This is Holly. Thank you. Okay, I will update that Douglas does want to run again. So with that being said, we have all of our 911 positions, which are 10, being represented by somebody. So that takes care, unless there's somebody else out there who wants to add another nomination, which would then require a vote. I think as of right now, all of those positions would just become filled by acclamation, since technically nobody's running against any of those 911 positions. I don't know if Daryl or Carl or Scott have any thoughts on how that would work. This is my first time doing an election, so I don't know if you guys do acclamation nominate or accepting by acclamation, or if we actually still need to vote on all 10 of those positions.
So this is Daryl. Following the bylaws, we can't take any more nominations. I would say we could make an exception if there were a position that doesn't have any nominees, and we could take nominations from the floor, but the bylaws say the nominations are supposed to be made before this meeting.
Okay.
So I would recommend against opening it up to additional nominations at this time. And the bylaws say that we do an election, but if there's only 1 candidate for each position, Carl, I think I would leave it up to you to decide if you want to just have a vote today to accept the slate of candidates, since there's nobody running against anyone else for any of the positions. And then we can forego the ballot that's supposed to come out after this meeting.
I agree with that, but I'm also up for election, so I think that's a little bit not fair for me to make that decision. I think if anybody's opposed to that, please speak up now.
And this is Holly, maybe that will change if we take nominations from the floor for the positions that don't currently have a representative. And if we have more than one person running for each of those positions, and maybe we do have to do a ballot, but so I can go forward and tell you which positions do not have any representation yet.
Yes, let's do
To help.
that.
Okay, so this is Holly. I haven't received anything from whether we have an accessibility representative. Cheryl, that's currently your position. I don't know if you intended on running again or if that becomes a open position. And Cheryl, if you want to let us know in the chat whether you intended on running again, we can circle back to that position. And then I do not have a representative for the BESP from Lumen. Tim Kunkelman, I know you're the current representative for that. If you are interested in running again for that, I can add you to this. Otherwise, we would need to take a nomination to see if any other folks are interested in the BESP.
Hi, this is Tim. Yes, Holly, my apologies. I thought that I had responded to you. I realized I didn't. So yes, I am interested and willing to run for that position again.
This is Holly. Cheryl, I can hear you, but I'm not quite sure. Cheryl, are you able to access the Zoom chat and put into the chat what you are wanting to tell the group?
Okay, I'm here now. Yes, I'm interested. Continuing.
Gil, this is Holly. We're having a hard time hearing Gil. Gil, are you able to get a little closer to the mic so that we can hear you a little bit better?
Okay, is this better? Okay.
It's a little bit better.
What are you saying, Cheryl? I don't want to be voted off the island.
This is Holly. Okay, Cheryl, I will put you down as as a nomination for the accessibility representative.
All right. And what, Cheryl? And sign up. And what? Billy Allen.
This is Holly. Cheryl, Billy and I have discussed what his options are, and so I'll get to that here in just a moment.
All right. Okay, thank you.
So the other representative that we are missing is the ILEC representative, which is also Lumen. Wes, I know you're on the call. Are you interested in that position again?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I didn't get that too. I thought I had done that. So yes.
All right, this is Holly. Thank you. I will add Wes's name to that. And then the last representative position for 2022 was the CLEC VoIP representative, and that is currently Ray Paddock with Intelliquent. I don't believe that Ray was on this call today unless he joined after we did the roll call. Ray, are you on the call and have any interest in that position?
Yes, I am on the call, and yes, excuse me, yes, I am interested in running again.
This is Holly. Okay, I will go ahead and update the roster to show that you are on the call, and then I will add your name to the nominations. So that takes care of all of the 2022 positions that were open and available. As it currently stands, we don't have any contested positions because there is only one individual looking to run for each of these positions. So keep that in mind. But then the last thing that I wanted to discuss is that the member at large position that was previously held by Matthew Ruggles, which is kind of serves as a position for individuals with disabilities or a representative from the deaf and hard of hearing community. That position is open because Matthew has resigned from it. That term does not end until 2022. So whoever takes this position would essentially be completing the 2021 term. So you would be voted in for one more year, and then at the end of 2022, if you were interested, you could run again for the member at large position. That would then be 2 years. I know that at the last meeting, Billy Allen had discussed his interest and wanting to potentially run for that position. Billy had also said he wanted to support Cheryl in the accessibility position if she was still interested in it. So that leaves the member at large position for 1 year open. And Billy, it looks like you are nominating yourself for, I think Cheryl nominated you for that position.
Yes, I did. And side note, I feel that we need
Gil, we're having some trouble hearing you, Gil. Are you able to get a little closer?
Okay, I'll try this again. As a side note, we need a rep for the deaf community because even though I'm over the equal access, I am not deaf. So we would need somebody with that perspective. And that's why I nominated Billy. Okay, that's all. Go ahead.
So this is Holly. The current positions that we have are indicated in the bylaws. So if we did want to either add a position that's specifically meant for a deaf or hard of hearing representative, that would require a bylaws change, is my understanding of that. I don't know if Carl or Daryl can confirm that. And I don't know what the rules are on how bylaw changes come about, whether that has to be a annual, you can change them annually. I don't completely know that, so I'll turn that over to probably Daryl might know best, or I'm sorry, I know there's a bylaws committee, so whoever is the chair of the bylaws committee may know best on what that would potentially look like. But as I understand it, we couldn't just create a new position without making amendments to the bylaws.
And I see Kimberly's hand up. Kimberly is the chair of the bylaws committee.
Hi, this is Kimberly, and that's correct. We would need to reconvene the subcommittee and have the discussion from a subcommittee to make changes or recommendations for changes, and then those changes would go back to the committee at large for voting and approval. When we previously explored the request, that's where we came up with the at-large position. So at any time that we have members interested to represent that position, then the committee, the voting members would look at that and review it, and then obviously do our annual voting to affirm that person in the position. So that's where we landed the last time we looked at this request in question, was that at-large position that is now filled. So if we wanted to expand and look at it again, I would need to reconvene the bylaws subcommittee.
This is Cheryl. If we do expand, I'd like to include the what? The blind. I have a person who might be interested in that. And she comes from the Audio Information Network.
So this is Kimberly. The intent when we have a voting member representing a particular area is for that person to represent a particular area and speak on behalf of that particular interest or community or needs of that area that they are representing. So when I'm speaking and representing my agency, I am looking at the big picture of all of the needs representing the 911 community across the state. And that's where we've landed with our members, is not to be so large and exhaustive that we are including every possible industry representative that has an interest, but making sure that our Lex, for example, and our wireless, for example, are going back and speaking with the agencies that they represent. My expectation and understanding would be the same for you, Cheryl, and also for Billy, that you are speaking to the subcommittee accessibility issues and bringing those forward on their behalf to the entire committee versus expanding our membership. But again, if it's the desire of our chair for us to reconvene from a bylaws committee, I'm happy to do that.
All right, thank you. I can also ask Billy to I'm not getting that Cheryl to do what? To know. To know. Oh, to join. To join our subcommittee, as well as a rep from the blind community. And that will be under Holly and me. Just a thought. Go ahead.
So this is Holly. Cheryl, anyone who wants to be part of the subcommittee, the accessibility subcommittee, you have the authority to invite them to be part of that. If that helps reduce the amendment to bylaws. And Billy put a comment in the chat about how we could add language around the member at large position. being specific, having priority over a deaf or hard of hearing individual. The language does somewhat say that. It doesn't spell out deaf, but it does say that the member at large position will have priority if the representative has a disability. So it doesn't specifically say deaf or hard of hearing, but it does say that priority will be given to those who are part of a disabled community. And I have to apologize there. I did overlook, it looks like Karen with Rapid SOS had also reached out to me regarding potential interest in the member at large position. Karen, I don't know if you are on the call and if that was still something you had interest in. I didn't hear back with you through email, so I wasn't sure if you wanted me to add your name as a nomination. I think I saw.
Yeah, I'm here. No, learning more about it. I don't think that I'm qualified really for that group, but I'm happy to help if there's any other areas that I can support. Also wasn't really sure about time and want to be fair to the state of Colorado and not end up getting kicked off because my schedule gets crazy.
Who is speaking? This is Cheryl.
Oh, sorry, Cheryl, this is Karen Marquez with Rapid SOS.
Okay, bye. Email me. Email me later. We'll talk.
Okay. This is Holly. Cheryl, I don't think Karen was saying she was interested in the accessibility committee. She was previously interested at the member at large position, but now learning more about the member at large position and the time commitment, she is withdrawing her name as a nominee. So with that, we have Billy Allen, who has been nominated for the member at large position. It looks like that position is running uncontested. And again, Billy would be filling the current term that was previously held by Matthew Ruggles. So with that, we do not have any contested positions. So I'll turn it over to Daryl or Carl if you want to accept these positions by acclamation, or if you would prefer that we move forward with an official electronic ballot.
This is Daryl. I think that's a Carl decision. Carl, do you have any objection to having a vote on it today since there are no contested positions?
No, this is Carl. I don't have an issue with that. My only thing would be two separate votes, one for, since they're two separate terms, or can we do it in one? I guess it depends on how the motion's worded. To fill the existing state or the state of candidates for the 2022, as well as the open position for the midterm position for the member at large. Does that make sense or not?
It does. And I think you worded it well. So if somebody wanted to say, I make that motion, we could probably move on from there to a vote.
This is Cheryl. I move that we move on to vote. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay,
This
so
is
we
Carl.
have,
So
go ahead, Carl.
this is Carl. Cheryl made the motion. Can I get a second?
This is Holly. I apologize that I am not quite sure what that motion was. I'm assuming that Cheryl is making a motion to accept all of the 2022 nominations as listed, and I will include those in the minutes on who those individuals are.
Yes, that is correct.
And I also believe it, this is Carl, I believe it also included to fill the open spot for the member at large.
Right, Holly. So what Carl suggested is that all of the positions for 2022 be accepted, as well as the nomination for the remainder of the member at large position for 1 year. And Cheryl made a motion to accept that that proposal. So again, is there anyone willing to second that motion?
This is Megan. I second.
This is Carl. Megan, thank you very much. Is anybody opposed to the motion? Seeing none, motion passes. This is Carl. Our next item is standing reports. Several have already submitted the report, some have not. I'll start with Daryl for the PUC report.
Sorry,
right.
this is Holly. One more thing. I apologize. We do still have a wireless representative position open. So as of current, all the positions are filled except for the wireless representative, which is currently Patrick from T-Mobile Wireless. So I just want to throw that out there for folks on the call that that position is still open. If anyone is interested currently in filling it, or we'll have to keep calling for representatives down the line. Okay, apologies.
Sorry, Holly. This is Carl. Sorry, Holly, for interrupting. I think this is a position that we continually have problems filling. And thank you for bringing that back up. Is there anything else?
Nope, that's it. I'll just indicate that that position is still vacant when I do the minutes.
And I will.
This is Carl.
And this is
Go ahead,
Daryl.
Carl.
I'll do some reaching out after the meeting, see if I can find an interested party for that position. But you're right, Carl. That's a position that we've traditionally had trouble filling because employees of the wireless companies tend to have a hard time making it to the meetings.
Thank you. This is Carl. Anything else on elections? Seeing none, now we'll start with staff reports. Daryl?
Great, thank you. So 911 grant update. We're close to closing out all of the grant agreements. All of the grant agreements were that are currently in place were scheduled to expire at the end of this year. Holly's been reaching out to the stragglers that still owe us paperwork before we can provide them with their reimbursement. If this is you, you've already been contacted, but I don't know that we have anybody on the call today that this applies to. So we will continue reaching out to them. We don't want anybody to miss out on getting their reimbursements if they haven't received them yet. PUC proceedings, draft 911 reliability rules are still being reviewed by Commission Council. I had hoped to get these out by the end of October. Now I'm hoping to get them out by the end of November. It's a long process, so thank you everyone for your patience. We will get those out as soon as we can. FCC proceedings, the FCC issued a notice of proposed rulemaking on the topic of improving communications reliability during disasters. There is a link to the notice of proposed rulemaking in the standing reports document. Comments are due by December 6th and reply comments are due by January 4th. Federal legislation, the infrastructure bill that passed, just so in case there's any confusion, the infrastructure bill that passed does not include the 911 grant program. That grant program is in the reconciliation bill, which has not yet passed. There was a standalone bill to create a $10 billion grant program. The idea was to roll that grant program, roll that standalone bill into the infrastructure spending bill, and it did get rolled into that. However, it has since been reduced to $500 million instead of $10 billion. It would still be the largest 911 grant from the federal government in our nation's history, so that it's not anything to sneeze at. But it is disappointing to go from 10 billion to 500 million. The states would not receive all $500 million. The way it's written right now, there would be money set aside for setting up a federal 911 advisory board, a security operations center at the federal level. And so I think what it came out to was about $470 million would be available for grant programs. So still a lot of money for the states if it ever gets passed. So we'll be watching that. Implementation of the state 911 surcharge. So state 911 surcharge distributions for September and October were both around $650,000, which is what we've been expecting. For prepaid, it was a little over 1 million for September and October. I have seen the numbers for November. The state 911 surcharge distributions are down a little bit for the month of November. We believe that's because the last day of the month, which is when the fees are due to be remitted to our custodial agent, which is a company by the name of Solix, it fell on a weekend this month. So we're expecting that even though they were low this month, it'll be higher next month to make up for it. Prepaid wireless 911 charge distributions were also a little bit lower. They were around 800,000, I believe. I don't have any word from DOR as to what may have caused that change, but we're hoping to see that go up again next month as well. And incidentally, because the prepaid wireless 911 charge is $1.38 per transaction right now, it is going up to $1.63, I think is what the number the commission landed on in January. So starting in February, when it gets distributed, you should see an increase in the wireless prepaid surcharge distributions from that increase as well. Deadlines coming up. The last day to file an application with the commission to increase your emergency telephone charge above the threshold established by the commission for a June 1 effective date is March 1st. It's too late for a February 1st effective date. And the reason for that is because you have to give 60 days notice to the carriers, and there's a 30-day comment period on every application. So you have to count back 90 days from February 1st, which means that it's already too late for a February 1st effective date. However, if you want to make an application to go above the threshold established by the commission, which will be $1.81 next year, you have until March 1st. Now, as always, we recommend that you provide giving us a draft ahead of time, because if you file it and there's issues with it, that can extend the time necessary to approve the application, which could cause you to miss that March or the 60-day notice requirement to the carriers, which could mean that you wouldn't be able to make it effective until the following February 1st, which is a long span there. And then the last day to file an application with the commission for an increase in the number of concurrent sessions for reimbursement beginning in 2023 is July 1. And the actually has to be approved by the commission by August 1. But again, because all applications have a 30-day comment period, this really means that July 1 is your last day to file that application with the commission and have a chance of its being approved. If you want to increase your chances, file it even sooner, because if there's any delay at all, if you file it July 1, and if there's any delay at all in getting that approved by the commission, that could delay you getting reimbursement for those concurrent sessions until the following year, 2024. I don't want you to miss out on an entire year of reimbursements for those concurrent sessions. So make sure to get those filed as soon as you can. I do want to show you briefly, there is a new website. So I've shown you this before. This is the 911 program website, but we have now, first of all, I want to show you that I have included both forms, the concurrent session application form, which is new, and the newly updated 911 surcharge, or it's actually the emergency telephone charge application form on this page. But there's also a new telecom surcharges page where we combined the different surcharges that are collected by the commission or approved by the commission. So surcharges collected by the commission, if you ever want to see it, the current rate and the upcoming rate. So 10 cents per line per month for 2021, effective January 1, it's going down to 9 cents TRS surcharge rate, And the 988 surcharge, which is new, starting in January 1 of 2022, will be 18 cents. And then we have additional information about emergency telephone charges. Even though we don't collect those, we do set the threshold for those. The prepaid wireless 911 charge, and same for TRS and 988. So if you ever want to see information about the different surcharges all in one place, that's what the purpose of this page is. So hopefully this is helpful to you. As always, if you're ever perusing these pages and you have any suggestions for improvement, let us know, because we're always open to those. And with that, I think I'm done for now. Oh, I do also want to mention that that there is a Next Generation 911 Strategic Plan Workshop planned for January 24th. Everyone who is on the Colorado EZNet users group email list should have received an invite to that. If you did not receive an invite to that and you would like to attend, just send me an email and I'll add you to the meeting invite. This is going to be a very important meeting for everyone to participate if you can. And so I just really want to encourage participation with that, because we will be talking about the future of the use of the EZNet to move us closer to the reality of Next Generation 911 in this state. And having a written plan for how to do that and what our priorities are as a state really needs to come from you guys, because the whole purpose of this plan is to meet your needs. So I would really encourage everyone to participate if you can. And with that, I'll answer any questions that anyone may have. All right, back to you, Carl.
This is Carl. Darrell, thank you for the report. Next item is BSP report. Lumen, Tim, do you have anything?
Hi, this is Tim. I do not have anything to add.
This is Carl, thank you. Next item, BSP report in Toronto, Mary Jane.
I don't have anything today. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. This is Carl. Next item is agenda committee, Darrell.
So we are going to be planning our presentations for 2022. I have a separate item on the list today to talk about meeting schedule and meeting locations. And as part of that draft meeting plan, I also have some proposed topics, at least for the first part of the year. I am recommending the dissolution of this committee simply because it doesn't meet very often. When we first set up this committee, we were having difficulty coming up with topics and speakers for task force meetings, and that's no longer the case. And we now have enough topics and speakers that we're actually doing meetings doing our lunch and learns between our regular meetings, just to accommodate all of those topics and presentation proposals. So I don't know that this committee is necessary anymore. And just because we have a very long list of committees for the task force, I'm recommending that this committee be dissolved.
What's that, Joe? Darrell, this is Cheryl. I set up presentations for a number of committees and what outside of this, I would be happy to be a point person for Darrell. Be a point person, okay? to help set up speakers. It's what? It's as if I don't have enough to do.
Thank you, Cheryl. And yes,
Go ahead.
I'm always open to, this is Daryl, I'm always open to receiving suggestions on topics and speakers from any of the members or even non-members of the task force. If you're just a participant and would like to see a topic or a presentation on a specific topic or from a specific speaker, always please let me know. And I'm going to ensure that we do have at least 1 or 2 presentations in 2022 on accessibility topics, because that is very important to our industry. So thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that. And I may be reaching out to you for some topic content.
This is Carl. Daryl, can I get a clarification on something? On these committees, do we need to make a motion or can I dissolve them?
They, per the bylaws, this is Daryl, per the bylaws, the committees serve at the chair's pleasure, so you can dissolve them yourself when you wish, unless you would, choose to take a vote from the membership.
Okay. Is there any, this is Carl, is there anybody opposed to dissolving the agenda committee? Okay, seeing none, then we'll dissolve the agenda committee.
Thank you.
This is Carl. Go ahead, Daryl.
I just said thank you.
This is Carl. Our next item is the bylaws committee. Kimberly, are you back?
I am back. Thank you. This is Kimberly. I have nothing to update on for the bylaws committee.
This is Carl. Thank you. Next item is the legislative committee. Jackie, are you on the phone? This is Carl. I know we've been working through on the legislative committee several items, and we continue to have meetings. Other than that, I really don't have a meeting. Next item is equal access. Cheryl, I believe you're going to have Holly give the presentation.
This is Gil. For myself this time. Sure,
Gil, this is Carl. I can't hear you.
Inside, they can't hear me. Yeah. Well, since you can't hear me very well, go ahead, Holly, and read that from Cheryl.
This is Holly. Cheryl sent me her report, so I will do a readout of that. Last month, the Accessibility Committee met and their presentation was on iPause and the issues and concerns around inaccessibility, such as it not always being audible, readable, or visual. And Cheryl will continue to work with iPause regarding that. Over the past few days, there have been fires in Estes Park in which Cheryl received a number of alerts, either saying that mandatory or voluntary evacuations were to be taken. And these notifications were also not audible. And Cheryl has requested that Kimberly Culp reach out regarding this to see if there's anything can be done about audible notifications. On November 17th, a police alert came to Cheryl's husband's phone that stated that criminal activity was in the area, which is nothing that is typical to the normal code red alerts. They placed a call to their non-emergency dispatch, who told them that they could not find any type of report. And so Cheryl believes that this was possibly a scam, and to be aware of that. And then Julia Beams has announced that she is looking for volunteers for the Center of Inclusive Design and Engineering, who is collaborating with the Disaster Management Institute at the Community College of Aurora. And they are looking to provide hands-on, reality-based training for specialized military teams, EMTs, firefighters, hospital workers, police, and city and state emergency managers to ensure they know how to effectively interact, communicate, and address emergency situations with the disabled community. And if you would like more information on that or to volunteer, you can contact Julia Beams, and I have provided her phone number and email address in the minutes. Additionally, the Colorado Emergency Management Conference will be held February 22nd through the 25th, and the registration is now open. They are looking for exhibitors and sponsors. If you are interested, you can contact Cheryl. And the next meeting is scheduled for January 27th, as the November and December meetings have been canceled due to the holidays.
This is Carl Hawley. Thank you for the report. Are there any questions? This is Carl. I believe that Jackie's able to get off mute and we'll give her legislative update.
Yes, thank you, Carl. This is Jackie Louise, Legislative Committee Chair. We have been keeping minutes, so if you need those minutes, just let me know. But that's a new addition to our committee, which is really nice. I have reached out to the representative. We had one meeting early in November with the representative's aide and have not heard back from her yet. I know she was due back in November to move forward. I've also received positive feedback from the people who reached out to the police chiefs and the Sheriff's Association. They're both, of course, just waiting for draft legislation. So that's where we are, and that's on the misuse of 911 legislation. Sorry, thanks. Any questions?
This is Carl, nothing. Is there any update for the prepaid or collections committee?
No, there's not. We're kind of waiting for our reporting software so that we can see how that compares to how we are now doing wireless stats to do the prepaid collections and distributions. And I'm looking forward to hearing the answer to the question about ECATs being able to capture volume by ESN. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for Jackie? Okay, our next item, sorry to get out of order. Daryl, outage committee.
Let me get to the committee page. And we've got the dashboard. I just wanted to show where we're at right now as we're getting ready to close out the year. Okay, so for 2021, we have had 8 basic emergency service outages so far this year compared to 10 total in 2020. As of this time this year, we are at the same place we were last year. So we'll see how it closes out, but we're not ahead of schedule or below schedule compared to last year, although we are certainly doing better than we were at this same point in 2019 or 2018 or even 2017. So overall, the number of outages has been down this year compared to previous years, but still in line with last year. Outages per month, our largest number of outages was in January of this year, where we had 3 basic emergency service outages. We had 1 each April, May, or March, April, and May, 1 in July, 2 in October. We do have 1 more that isn't closed out yet that will add to this number for the beginning of November, but otherwise I don't see any others that we have pending. Average duration, unfortunately, is up. So we've had fewer outages than in previous years, but the outages we have had lasted longer. They've taken longer to repair. but average customer count is down. So they're happening in more rural areas, affecting smaller numbers of customers, but taking longer to repair is really the takeaway from that so far. Average 911 outage impact in customer minutes is low this year compared to the last 2 years, primarily because of the smaller number of customers impacted by the outages. And same thing on the total user minutes up to current year to date. Assuming we don't get a significant increase to this before the end of the year, we will be ending lower than we did last year and significantly lower than we did in 2019. And that again is due to the smaller number of customers impacted per outage. 3 out of 4 of the outages we've received so far this year have been full outages, compared to 25% being alley only. And then down here you see the causes. This is 2016 to current year to date. So this is a running pie chart showing what typically causes outages in the state. And this is the pie chart on the right is for outages only current year to date. So this is 2021. 4 of the outages have been accidental cable cuts. 1 was planned, 2 were system failures, and 1 was unknown. They were unable to identify a cause for the outage. And we have had a couple of meetings of the outage committee since the last task force meeting. What we do is, if we have an outage that meets certain criteria, such as more than 4 hours in duration, multiple PSAPs impacted, and a report of poor communication between the BESP and the PSAPs, we do a special investigation. We send a list of questions to the BESP to answer, and if the once those answers are provided, if the affected PSAPs would like to have a meeting of the outage committee, then we convene a meeting of the outage committee to talk about that outage and ask additional questions. And that format seems to be working fairly well. I think it's providing some good information for the outage committee. And one of the things that we do with that is, after each of those special investigations, I'm adding that information to this document right here on the outage committee webpage, 911 outage lessons learned and best practices. So we're keeping a living document showing any sort of best practices or lessons learned that were identified as part of that outage investigation. And it's taking a little bit to load this because we're streaming right now, but you can see that each one of these items that are listed on here has a link back to the special investigation where that item originated. So I would encourage you to take a look at this every once in a while, because it is changing as we go through these special investigations. And I'm hoping that people are finding it useful, but if nothing else, we are creating a document that kind of summarizes all of the items that we've gleaned from all of the different investigations that we've done. And that's all I have to report, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Hi, this is Cheryl. When you what? No, one moment. What? If a person has a medical emergency or a medical, medical interpreter, and a medical what? Equipment. If the person has medical equipment and the power goes out, it can kill them. Get it? So So I've been talking to our I've been talking to United Power. And they told me they don't have many outages, which is not the point. Which is not the point. Just a comment. Just making a comment. Go ahead.
Cheryl, this is Daryl. I couldn't catch all of that. Your volume's very low, but I think your comment was that people who are relying on medical devices that rely on the telephone system to deliver emergency notifications to someone are impacted by outages, and I think that's true. And I do want to remind everyone that what the outage committee is looking at is specifically basic emergency service outages. That's outages that meet the commission's definition of basic emergency service, which starts at the ingress to the EZNet or at the selective router and ends at the demarcation point with the public safety answering point. So we're not reviewing outages that occur before that point or after that point. So it kind of limits what we're looking at, because those are the types of outages that the commission has regulatory authority over.
How about cars? That are electric? And what, you in charge or what? Just what? Just saying. So you're saying you can impact. And I apologize. I do need to get off the call. I'm a busy person.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions or comments?
This is Kimberly. I have a question. So Daryl, I'm confused on how customer count is determined. And so I was trying to wrap my head around this, and if the outage is in the BESP network and from a customer count, when they report how many customers are impacted, how would they have the information if the outage in the network they're reporting impacts customers of other carriers?
This is Daryl. The customer count is self-reported by the basic emergency service provider when they submit the outage notification and the final report to the commission. So I guess I would direct this question to Tim as the BESP representative. Tim, do you know how CenturyLink goes about estimating the number of customers affected?
Well, typically, this is Tim. Typically, they are our customer counts. There are times where we might know of a facility that is impacting other customers, but typically that number is our number.
This is Kimberly. That's what I was thinking that number was driving from, which would make sense on why it's declining, because we know that landline customers are declining across Colorado specifically. So it may not be a true accurate reflection of how far reaching an outage is and the impact it has to customers in general, especially if the outage impacts more than Lumen customers, if it's wireless as well.
This is Daryl.
Right. This is Tim. I would agree. And, you know, there are times in the report where we know which customers got impacted. So we might know a wireless company, you know, for example, an AT&T circuit is on that path that went down. So we might have some knowledge of what kind of impact another carrier and what type of carrier could have. But again, that we typically wouldn't report beyond, you know, the one customer of ours of being AT&T in that customer count. And sometimes those counts will be for multiple types of services. So it's not just a voice customer. It could be a broadband customer or a enterprise type customer that might be buying other services besides, you know, voice and data.
And this is Daryl. I think that's a very good point, Kimberly, because, and strictly speaking, everybody's impacted when there's a basic emergency service outage. It really doesn't matter who your provider is and whether you're using landline, wireless, or VoIP, because calls can't get to the PSAP. So there's an outage that affects all of the customers in that PSAP's service area. So going forward, what we might do is start trying to estimate what the population is of that area, in addition to the self-reported number of users affected from the BESP, also keeping track of if we were to address all of the customers that are impacted, which is everyone who lives in that PSAP service area, what would the number be, and have that as a separate measure. So that's a good point, and I'll take that back and look at the information that we collect and see if there's a way that we can incorporate that.
This is Carl. I think that's a good point, and I think Daryl's solution works. But there's also places like Aspen or Estes Park that's going to have a higher population than just a higher number of people in that town than just the population that lives there. But I don't know how to count that.
You're right, Carl, and that's always been one of the tricky parts of estimating population for 911 purposes, is the population changes, and that's true even of Fort Collins and Boulder, which have student populations that may not be reflected in the official population counts.
This is Kimberly. I think adding population at least gets us a little bit closer to measuring that impact.
This is Daryl. I agree, and I'll look into what we can do to enhance our statistics in the future to show that. Any other questions or comments for the outage committee? Okay, I think the next one's me, Carl, if you don't mind me just continuing on.
No, go ahead.
So the next item is reports committee. Every other meeting, we provide a report from the task force to the commission. That report is due after this November meeting. A draft of the report was sent to the reports committee, and I did get some good feedback from the reports committee on that draft, and that information has been, or those suggestions have been incorporated into the report. And that report was also included in the meeting folder that Holly sent out to the group. So unless anybody has any additional changes they would like to propose at this time, I would ask Carl to call for a motion to approve the report.
So this is Carl. Are there any recommended changes? Is there a motion to approve?
This is Ray. I'll make the motion.
This is Carl. Ray, thank you. Can I get a second?
This is Vicky. I'll second.
Vicky, thank you. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you, Daryl. Anything else?
Not from the reports committee.
Thank you. Next item is EZNet user group, Kimberly.
This is Kimberly from an EZNet user group. I just have a couple of items to update everybody on. So again, we continue to meet monthly and I encourage participation. We've had good participation so far. It's a great opportunity to come to the committee and bring issues, concerns that you have in EZNet. So right now, from an open perspective, we have a transfer issue that's being worked out for AdCom for the Adams County area. I'm not sure how much of that is going to be tied to the EZNet versus configurations on their CPE. So they're working through that with their CPE vendor. From a project perspective, we did place a formal request to Lumen as our EZNet provider for consideration of text to the network from the TCC. So that handoff from the TCC to the EZNet, and then they would deliver that text across the EZNet to our demarcations, our responsibility to then have the right equipment to receive and process that text call. We were hopeful that that was going to be an easy ask. It's not. It's actually more complicated. And so Lumen has to go back to Intrado and continue to have conversations about how they can make that work. So the answer is not a no. The answer is they still need to have additional conversation. So it's not a first quarter 2022 deployment or anything that we're going to see in the first quarter of 2022 from a tariff amendment. So just know that Lumen is still having those conversations with Intrado. The next ask that we put in front of Lumen was to improve the reporting tools on the EZNet, and their demonstration of the tools drove us to ECATS, which many of you use ECATS today. And ECATS would be a replacement of Clearview, but it's not a one-for-one exchange. So there would be a price increase for ECATS. And that price increase can't be issued without a tariff amendment. So there will be a pending tariff process in front of us. And Daryl already alluded to a EZNet, state EZNet conversation meeting that we're going to be hosting. So I encourage you to come to that. We're hopeful that we'll have additional details from Lumen on what that looks like. So that tariff process can be smoother than previous processes. So really from an ECATS group, or I'm sorry, from an EZNet group, that's what we do. We're talking about status of the network and where we go next with our 911 deployment. And then I think that's about all I have from changes. Does anybody have any questions on EZNet? Great, thank you, Carl.
This is Carl. I said I was going to bring this up later, but Bruce, do you want to bring up your concern? Because I think that kind of applies to the EZNet as well as the task force. Because if you're getting charged late fees, that's something we're going to have to account for. Lumen can't fix it.
Bruce, are you on the call? I see him on here.
He was. We may bring up his.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, so I put most of it in the chat, but essentially the invoices for the tariff are dated on the 1st of each month. But by the time we receive it in the mail or it's accessible in Control Center, which is Lumen's electronic version of the billing portal, it's anywhere between the 7th and the 10th. Once I enter that or approve that invoice and send it on up to be entered into our accounts payable system and it goes through its other approvals, It typically doesn't make it to Lumen by the due date of the 20th or the 21st. I've reached out to Wes Horn a number of times, and he's done what he can to try to help me with it. He is being told by folks in Lumen that they don't apply a late charge until it's 30 days late, but that's just not what's actually happening. And I'm receiving late fees at times anywhere between $1,200 and $2,400 per month. I've been able to work around that lately by, asking everyone within my approval system to put a rush on it and get it out the door as soon as possible. But it seems a little odd to me that we don't even have a net 30 on these invoices to get the check to Lumen.
This is Andrew. We're seeing the exact same issue here in Denver. We've been dealing with it thus far by reaching back out to Lumen and asking them to explaining that our purchase order process takes, a few days longer. And they've been gracious enough to remove the late fees, but we're having to ask every single time.
Exactly. It's actually tying up quite a bit of time with me having to ask for my folks to put a rush on the payment. And then if it doesn't happen to make it in time, then having to reach out to Lumen to have the charges reversed.
So this is Kimberly. Daryl and Tim Kunkelman, from a tariff perspective, I don't see how late fees are applicable and can be charged.
Good point, Kimberly.
If it was customer services, off the shelf business services, then late fees, obviously it's a different path, but because of the tariff, historically, our old tariff did not allow for late fees to be charged. And so I'm confused if the new tariff, if Lumen believes that there's some mechanism process that allows late fees.
This is Tim. This is the first time I've heard this, so I'll have to go take a look, and I'm chatting with Wes for a little bit to see how I can insert myself and help out with this. So I don't know, I don't have anything to say about it now, but I do appreciate hearing this. And we'll get this fixed for you.
This is Kimberly. Great. Thank you, Tim. If you can just follow up with us, that would be great, because I would be confused. I'm assuming it's probably just some button in the billing system that needs to be grayed out for this classification of services, but please let us know what you find out.
And this is Wes. I'll get with Tim. We do clear up every one of those when we come across them. And typically a late fee shouldn't be posted, as it telling me, until the following month on that. But I understand that some folks are doing everything right, and it's still a miss for us. So we will work on that.
So this is Daryl, just looked it up. There is a late fee included in the tariff. It's 9.2.5.B.2. If you want to look it up yourself, I'll put that in the chat as well, of 1.5% per month, if not paid by the invoice date. So I don't know if the late fees that Lumen has been applying is following what's in the tariff, but there is a late fee that's included.
This is Bruce. For my invoices, that would be about a $360 late fee versus $2,400.
Hey, Daryl, this is Wes. We'll go through all that, Tim and I, and get back to our folks in collections and make sure that we take a closer look at aligning those processes with the tariff.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
This is Carl. Anything else on the EZNet user group? Seeing none, thank you, Kimberly, and everybody. Next item, GIS committee, Matt said he had to go, but there was no report. And then the next item is going to be Colorado Public Safety Broadband Update. Ed, are you still online?
Hey, this is Ed Mills.
Hi, Ed.
Hey, so we don't have a whole lot to report right now. We are very busy working on all the money that's going to come to the state through federal grants. By next meeting, we'll be able to kind of break that down a little bit. If you are interested or if you need money for any projects, please don't hesitate to send me an email at ed.mills@state.co.us. And as soon as we have a little more information about what the monies can be used for and where your project might fit in, we'll do all that hard work for you, figure that all out. Then we'll get that information to you. But right now we're working really hard. We're hoping to have an executive director soon. Once we do, I will bring the executive director to the group so that you'll know who my boss is. And anyway, that's all I have, Carl. Does anybody have any questions for me? Thanks, Carl.
This is Carl. Thank you, Ed, for the report. Next item is PSCS report. Deanie, are you on the line?
This is Shannon. Carl, she's not going to be able to make it.
Thank you. I believe Pam's on the phone. Do you have anything?
Good morning, Carl and everyone. I don't have a lot to report from the PSCS. I think probably they're mostly focused right now on the potential transition of the statewide radio network from OIT over to the Department of Public Safety. There was a meeting yesterday with Executive Director Stan Hilke and Director Kevin Klein to discuss where we're at in that possible move. There isn't anything, there's nothing to share as far as anything that has been decided or determined at this point. It looks like they're suggesting that that they may move the PSCN, our group, over under DHSEM, which is emergency management. But I think that there is a lot of work to be done on that yet. I know the legislative session starts in mid-January, and at that time, it will require a legislative action in order for us to be moved. So that's pretty much what they're focused on right now. The only other thing I might bring up is that the planning committee for the annual radio summit is busy planning for the 2022 summit, which will be May 4th and 5th of 2022. We're very hopeful that we may be able to have an in-person conference again and offer it a hybrid solution so that those that are not able to attend in person can also attend virtually. With the pandemic being what it is, we're going to plan to move forward with the hybrid solution, and if for some reason we're unable to do that, we can go to fully virtual like what we offered last year. So be on the lookout for any email notifications for the summit. And other than that, I don't think I have anything else for this group.
This is Carl. Thank you, Pam, and sorry about the on the spot.
That's quite all right. I'm glad I was here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Pam. This is Todd Holsworth. I didn't get unmuted to help you there. Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Todd.
Anything else on the PSCS report? Thank you. Next item is the SWIC report. Is there anybody with an update? I know Glenn's no longer with the state.
So Carl, it's Pam again, and the SWIC position right now is vacant, and there is there is discussion with this potential move of our group into DHSEM that they want to move that SWIC position under our group. So in the interim, I have been appointed to fill the SWIC position until such time as that position is posted and filled on a more permanent basis. So any questions for the SWIC can be directed to me.
This is Carl. Thank you, Pam, for that information. That's the first I've heard of it. This is Carl. Our next item is Division Fire Prevention and Control. I know Monica, I don't believe she's on the phone or on the conference.
She is not.
And then Vicki or Bruce, do you have a presentation or do you want me to read that?
I can't see the notes. Was this regarding this was regarding the Division of Fire Prevention?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I was filling in Monica's stead. They have several subcommittees that are broken out for different areas, and one is specific to the fire resources. And basically the committee got together. We did some sites visits down in California and Texas to try to see how they were doing on a statewide basis on resource management, and came up with a recommendation of a centralized center that could manage the resources better. And so that has been basically submitted to the main committee, and they will be prioritizing on costs and determining if they can move forward with those recommendations and whether or not they can get funding for them.
Well, thank you for the report. Are there any questions for Vicki? Seeing that, our last item, this is Carl, our last item is Colorado 911 Resource Center update. I don't know if Bruce has anything.
This is Bruce. I don't really have anything. Monica and I have been working together, both of us on a part-time basis, to keep things going with the Resource Center as much as we can, answering emails, fulfilling requests, and that sort of thing. But definitely not able to put in the time that Monica was when she was fully committed to that.
Thank you very much to both of you. And our next item is a break for lunch. Daryl, we probably need to take a short break, but I don't know if we need to take an actual lunch break.
Yeah, so my thought was that we would take maybe a 10 or 15-minute break for people to heat up their lunch and get back to their desk, and then we can finish out the business for the day.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's go ahead and come back at 12:15.
Great, thank you. This is Daryl. Carl, are you ready to get started?
This is Carl, yes, I am. Our next item is old business. Is there any old business? Nothing listed on the document. Seeing none, we'll move ahead. But Daryl, if we could add the follow-up to the billing issues to the next meeting for old business, that would be appreciated.
Sounds good. Holly, did you catch that?
This is Holly. Yeah, I caught that.
Thank you. This is Carl. Our next item is new business, 3G wireless phase out, Daryl.
I just wanted to point out to everyone, in case you're not aware, that the major wireless carriers have announced that they are discontinuing 3G support on their networks next year. When they actually plan on doing it varies. And let me share my screen again here, and I will. Which one is it? This one. I really don't like how Zoom shares the screen, because then my main screen goes away. NASNA put out a press release. I'm currently working with Department of Regulatory Agencies at the state of Colorado to get a press release sent out from the Public Utilities Commission as well. But if you go to the NASNA webpage, which is just nasna911.org, scroll down to the bottom of the page under news and current issues, there's a press release listed for November 2021, NASNA public warning regarding 3G network retirement. And there's information in there as well as a link to the FCC page that talks about it. But this primarily will affect people with older devices. And for the most part, the people who have older devices that may still be using on these networks will be notified by the companies, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, of when their 3G service may be retired. However, if you've got an older phone that doesn't have service that you're using for 911 purposes only, which has sometimes been the case in the past with homeless shelters or domestic violence shelters, with those organizations giving out free phones to their clients that can only be used for calling 911 because they don't have an active service plan on them. They may not be notified by the company. So we want to make sure that people are aware that their older phones that they have for 911 only purposes may not work if they're relying on 3G technologies or 3G connections following the retirement of those. And that's early. Let's see, T-Mobile, AT&T has announced that they are discontinuing 3G service in February of 2022. And T-Mobile, Sprint are discontinuing service between March and July, and Verizon will discontinue service at the end of 2022. So when it ends kind of depends on which service you're using. Does anybody have any additional information about this or any questions? I don't know that I'll be able to answer very much in terms of specifics about what the companies are doing, but I just wanted people to be aware of this change. And when the PUC does put out a press release on this, I'll send it out to the listserv so that everybody has a copy that you can use for your local messaging purposes if you wish. Okay.
This is Carl. Thank you, Daryl. Next item is the draft 2022 recommended standards, Daryl.
I can find it here. Okay, so commission rules require that the task force publish a list of recommended 911 standards on an annual basis. This is the third year, I think. No, it's the fourth year. So this is due to be published in January, so we don't have to approve this today, but I wanted people to be aware of that this draft is there. A copy of it is in the meeting folder for today's meeting. And I will be sending a list. I will be sending a copy out to everyone so that you can provide your feedback prior to the January meeting, because it will be my hope that we can do a vote at the January meeting to approve these. In the list that is included in today's meeting folder, I did include notes as to what changed. Not very much change, but some things did change, including the fact that there is now a NENA, an update to the NENA I3 standard. I updated some of the language and wording on some of the descriptions of the standards as well. So I'd encourage everyone to take a look at that and provide me with feedback if you think there's something in there that shouldn't be in there. If you think that there's a standard that we're missing, please let me know. These are, we decided fairly early on not to include things like the NENA informational documents or best practices documents. These are really technical 911 standards that the commission is then encouraged to use when it's making decisions on matters related to 911. So I just want to make sure everyone that was aware that this draft is available for review, and I'll be watching for any recommendations you may have to the document. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. And it looks like the next item under new business has already been discussed. That was the item that Bruce brought up earlier. So we'll be following up with that at the future meeting. So Carl, unless you have any objection, we'll move on to the 2022. I don't know why that's hard to say. 2022 meeting schedule discussion.
This is Carl, and my apologies for not seeing the billing cycle on the thing. And I'm glad I'm not the only one saying 2022. Go ahead.
I don't know. I'm saying it correctly, I think, but for some reason it sounds wrong. So I don't know what that is. So I included in, hang up on this person who's trying to call me. I included in the meeting folder a draft 2022 911 Advisory Task Force meeting plan. For the last several years, I've brought this up, asked if people wanted to change the schedule. We seem to be pretty comfortable with the every other month on the second Thursday. So that's the odd months on the second Thursday. So my proposal is, unless anybody wants to recommend or propose an alternative schedule, is to keep that schedule, but to also continue to have the lunch and learns on the second Thursday of even months between the meetings. Earlier this year, we talked about whether we wanted to continue to meet virtually or go back to in-person meetings. I'm going to propose virtual. What I'm proposing is that we continue doing virtual meetings for all meetings except for March and September, which will be in person with a virtual option for those who can't travel in person. I don't know if that changes due to the fact that Colorado continues to see an increase in its COVID cases. If people are not comfortable with us having an in-person meeting in March and September, we can just plan to go full virtual for 2022 as we did for this year. So I guess I'm going to stop there before I go on and talk about the rest of this document and see if anybody has any thoughts or alternate proposals, or if you like the idea of having an in-person meeting in March and September, but also having, but keeping it virtual for the rest of the year. Do we like that idea, continuing to do virtual, but have an in-person meeting in March and September?
This is Kimberly. I do. I think the virtual allows us to have more participation, but I do like the opportunity to have in person at least, twice a year, as long as we have a good venue that also supports virtual attendance to make people feel like they're connected and can hear good.
And I know that's been one of the challenges back when we were doing hybrid meetings for every meeting, or we'd have it in person, but we would also have a virtual option, is that depending on the meeting location, sometimes the audio wasn't very good. Sometimes the connections didn't work very well. So I think not doing that for every meeting would be welcome, but I agree that having some in-person, face-to-face meetings is also helpful. Any other thoughts? Do we think March and September are good times of year to do our in-person meetings? Not hearing any alternate suggestions, then do we have a volunteer to be the March meeting location?
This is Andrew. We'd be happy to host here in Denver.
Okay. And if you have not been to Denver 911's new location yet, it's pretty impressive. Patty?
I would propose we add one more.
Patty, we're not able, I'm at least, this is Holly, I'm not able to understand you at all.
Yeah, Patty, your connection is really bad.
This is Shannon. She put a note in there that she'd like to see 3 in-person meetings.
3 in-person meetings?
Yes.
So if we want to avoid the winter months for in-person meetings, which I would suggest, then that would mean May or July. Does anybody have a preference?
Would it be better to do May, July, and September?
Yeah, we could do that instead of March.
That would be my recommendation too, just from my perspective, then we'll.
I don't know if it helps, Daryl, but you know, conference will be in Loveland on, I think, May 11th.
Right. We'll need to make sure that the meeting date does not coincide with the state chapter meeting.
And this is Kimberly. I'm happy to host if anything aligns, and the group is up here for other meetings. So we have the capacity to do an in-person / virtual.
Does anybody know the dates off the top of their head for the state conference? It's May.
I believe it's May 11th, 12th, and 13th.
The 12th is a second Tuesday. Or sorry, second Thursday.
Yeah, May 11th through the 13th.
So we may need to move that that May task force meeting not to coincide.
And maybe have it sometime that week if it doesn't necessarily be a Thursday, if that doesn't work, and have Kimberly host it.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. If we have it at either at the beginning of the state conference or at the end of the state conference, then we can then we could hold it in Kimberly's shop, because a large portion of the state will already be in Loveland for the conference. How does that sound to you, Kimberly? Does that sound doable?
Absolutely. We'd be happy to.
Okay. So I'll work that out between you and the NENA APCO board to see when, which would be better, at the beginning of the conference or at the end of the conference. I'm going to tentatively put down Lita at the location. Stop calling me. Thank you. And then if we're doing May, July, and September for our in-person meetings, Denver 911, you already volunteered for March. Would you be willing to do July instead?
Absolutely.
Okay. And that leaves September. So who wants to volunteer to be the location for September?
This is Carl. I could volunteer to do September, but we may switch with Denver. Since July, there's usually no snow. Sometimes September there is.
Would that work for you, Andrew? Do September instead?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm flexible. Whatever works for Carl.
So May will be in Lida, July will be in Garfield County, and September will be Denver 911. We are currently using GoToMeetings for the full meetings and Google Hangouts for lunch and learns. I think Holly has her own GoToMeetings account now so we could use that potentially, couldn't we, Holly, for the lunch and learns as well going forward? So we're using one platform.
This is Holly. I think you mean Zoom, but yes, I have access to Zoom that we can use for bi-monthly
meant.
meetings and for lunch and learns.
Thank you. That is what I meant with Zoom, not GoToMeetings. Is the group comfortable with that? Do we want to keep using Zoom? I think one of the reasons we went to Zoom was that Google Hangouts is not as accessibility friendly for our accessibility participants. If nobody has a strong opinion, I think we just stick with Zoom, and I think we can start using that for the lunch and learns as well, so that we're being consistent and not switching back and forth between platforms.
This is Kimberly. I think consistency is helpful, and if this is the best platform for accessibility, I think that should be our priority.
Agreed. All right, well, not hearing anything to the contrary, that's what we'll do. And I listed some proposed presentation topics. You can see I've got some built out, and I've already got a potential for June, all the way out through June already. So there's still 5 meetings left in 2022 that we don't have presentations lined up for, but that gives us a full half year to fill those out. So as always, if anybody has any ideas for topics, send them to me. I did already put a topic for the accessibility committee because we talked about this earlier, Cheryl. I'll get with you and the rest of the accessibility committee to fill that out for February, and I'd like to do another one probably in the second half of the year as well. But if anybody has any other topics, whether they're technical, whether they have to do with staffing is a big issue right now, because I know 911 centers were having issues with staffing before the pandemic, and the pandemic has only made that worse. So if anybody has any thoughts on how we can talk about that, because I know that's also the topic of the NENA Critical Issues Forum this year, so we may get some material out of that. I'd be happy to get any recommendations or suggestions on that. And that's all I have for that. So thank you for helping me determine the meeting locations and the meeting schedule. And I'll get invites out to everyone so it's on everybody's calendar as soon as I can.
This is Holly. On the topic of like in-person scheduling, is there going to be any discussion of like COVID restrictions or requirements that the task force is going to set in place? Whether if you're in person, we require masks, or we are setting up the rooms so folks are, social distance from each other. I think that might be something worth discussing, because asking folks to attend in person, I think we need to set in place safeguards for them to feel comfortable doing that.
This is Daryl, and I would say that it's a little hard to know months in advance because it keeps changing. But I would say that whatever the local health department is recommending or requiring for in-person meetings, we would always, of course, we would follow those guidelines. And that if anybody is uncomfortable or doesn't feel like that it's safe for them to come in person, we will obviously make a virtual attendance option available to them. So we're not going to require anybody to come in person to participate. If they want to participate remotely, they can. I feel fairly comfortable saying that we can support social distancing, make sure that the seats are separated from each other. Beyond that, I think we might have to wait and see what the environment is like and what the requirements are from the local health department when the time comes. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
This is Kimberly. I think that's exactly right, Daryl. When we go forward with a meeting location, I think that should be communicated just on the agenda, because every county may have a different ordinance in place that is required to be followed. For example, in Larimer County, regardless of vaccination status, masks are required indoors. In my facility, in order for us to not have masks on, we have to prove 100% vaccination and be performing public safety duties. So there's all these different layers of an ordinance that we need to adhere to. So I think it's up to the hosting agency to work with the task force chair to make sure those are communicated, published to our members, and then our members have to make the decision that's best for them. And if virtual is the route they want to go based on what is required or not required in that county, then that's their individual choice. That would just be my recommendation.
Thank you. Anybody else?
This is Carl. I agree with Kimberly, and it should kind of fall also on the host, because they may be more restrictive as well than the county.
That's a good point. So yeah, I think a key to this will be working with the host agency well in advance of the meeting to make sure that everybody knows what the restrictions are, what the requirements are, not only of the municipality or county that they're going to, but the agency itself, if it has requirements that are more stringent than what the county is putting on everybody else. We want to make sure that we're being good guests and following all of those guidelines.
Hey, Daryl, this is Scott. Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember pre-COVID, did we do any kind of head count or tally to kind of get an idea of how many people would be in person, or did we just assume a certain room size?
We always did a RSVP form. We always sent that out ahead of time and asked people to RSVP. Invariably, some people would RSVP and not show up, and then some people would not RSVP and would show up anyway. But it usually gave us a pretty good idea, just a rough head count of how many people are going to be there. And that's also important because I should have mentioned this earlier on when I was asking for volunteers, but providing lunch is part of hosting if we're doing an in-person meeting, and they need a head count to be able to order that lunch ahead of time.
Yeah, Daryl, this is Scott again. That's what I was thinking logistically on the lunch portion. And then also, like Kim said, with the county by county restrictions, that might impact the capacity of the room too. So that would probably be a lot more important now than before.
That's a good point, yes. So if we know the capacity of the room ahead of time, we can watch for those RSVPs. And if it starts to get close to that limit, we can ask people to stop RSVPing. So that we don't go over our limit, and ask those people who didn't get in before the limit was reached to attend virtually instead. But I know Kimberly has told me that her facility we can actually spread the meeting out over multiple rooms and have the rooms connected so that we can maximize our social distancing that way. The facilities in Denver and Garfield County are both fairly large too. So I think we can do this. I really do. So we'll just work with the host agencies ahead of time and make sure all of those details are worked out. Okay, back to you, Carl.
This is Carl. Daryl, thank you. Anything for open discussion?
This is Vicki. I guess I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm going to be leaving GevCom at the end of this month, and I have a position at NINA in December, and I wanted to just say thanks for all the working together and the collaboration, and it's been great working with you guys.
Well, congratulations, Vicki. I know that you're going to do an amazing job. I was going to bring it up myself, but I wasn't sure if you were ready for it to be public or not. So congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Congrats, Vicki. We're going to miss you.
Thanks.
This is Carl. Vicki, are you going to stay in Colorado or still participate if needed?
Yeah, so I'm going to be working remotely. So the office is out of Alexandria, Virginia, but I'm going to be working remotely here. I talked to Jackie already about maybe staying with the legislative committee and with the resource center, at least for the time being. And but obviously will no longer be a voting member, and I cannot represent Nina in my capacity of that. So.
And this is Jackie. Greatly appreciated your help with the legislative committee, Vicki.
Thanks, Jackie.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
This is Carl, yeah, congratulations, Vic. I think you'll do great.
I miss you guys.
This is Carl. Is there anything else for open discussion?
Hey, Carl, this is Andrew. I had a quick question. Going through our first contract renewal with Lumen. So this is actually a question for Wes, if he's still on, and Daryl. Is there some standard documentation available on the Resource Center website or that you guys have as far as getting that squared away?
I'm not aware of any. Wes, do you have anything that you can share with Andrew?
No, Andrew, but I need to talk with you on something else. So let's sync up afterwards. And
Okay.
clarify that.
I think, from the PUC's point of view, the tariff is what governs the purchase of the service. So I think the contract is really just between you and Lumen.
Right. I'm looking at an email from somebody else at Lumen who's suggesting that we reach out to you, Daryl, to get some documentation. So I just wanted to, but Wes, we can touch base offline.
Yeah, I'm aware of that ask. That was my peer that works with the city and county with, but it is a tariff, Andrew, and that essentially is the agreement. But we can talk later on.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
This is Carl. Is there anything else for open discussion? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Miss Vicki, I so move.
This is Carl. Vicky, thank you. Can I get a second?
Yeah, this is Ray. I second the motion.
Ray, second. Anybody opposed? Motion approved. Everybody.